Like most people, I have books that I've read that stand out as game changers in my life, books that have a sort of before and after effect in my life, meaning that there was life before I read the book, and then there was life after, where I was essentially forever changed as a result of what I learned. So this is what I'm going to share with you in this video now. All right, so the first of the three things we're going to look at, and that is your inner voice. Now, learning about this in this book was such a game changer. Like, my head really exploded when I realized how unaware I was. I have to laugh because I can't believe how long I let this cause so much stress in my life. But how much I was unaware of that madman in my head that just allowed to go unchecked, chattering on constantly about anything and everything. We all have this inner person in our heads, this voice that just does a narration of everything around us, about the weather, the people, our environment, the smells, our food, our clothes, everything. And it is amazing how little thought we give to that voice and how much we let it just run wild and just really say whatever it wants to. And we are not fact checking any of this. No one's running a background check on the madman or the mad woman or the mad person. No one is checking their credentials. We just trust whatever they say as they make assessments on everything, including our value and our worth, and tell us how we should feel in any given situation. So a key thing here with this voice, how you turn this around, is to differentiate yourself from the voice and recognize that you are the watcher. You are the observer of that voice. You are not the voice. You are not the noise. You can be a neutral observer, aware that it is there, and then as needed, say to it, like, okay, enough now. Michael Singer talks about relaxing and releasing. So when you hear the voice, just take a moment first to just relax and then release it. And you can work to quiet that voice and calm down the amount of chatter that's happening in your head. But it's even enough just to recognize that you are not the voice and to differentiate yourself from it and not be a puppet, with it the puppeteer, pulling your strings, deciding how you feel in any given moment. All right, the second thing to look at is the energy that we hold on to. It is insane how most of us go through life like these negative energy hoarders. We're just taking everything that comes at us all the way back to childhood, and for the most part, just holding on to it as tight as we can. So chances are, if you're like most people right now, when you come across negative energy, meaning there's something that upsets you, and you'll notice when it's happening because you'll feel yourself tensing up, what we do is we hold on to it and we push it down. And we carry it around for life. And there are certain things that we encounter over and over and over, and we just keep collecting. And then we get to a point where we have so much of that specific thing that we're carrying that we can't really handle anymore. And this is where we start saying, I'm getting triggered. That's triggering me, because you're already boiling over with all of this that you're holding on to that you can't take anymore. You're like, the straw that breaks the camel's back is what's going to happen if I get any more of that in my life. So I just can't even handle it. So the alternative to this is to let it go, to release it. So we have an option in those moments when we feel ourselves tensing up, when we feel that negative energy coming in. We can either hold on to it, shove it down, store it, carry it around, or we can just let it go. What I do in these moments now that helps me so much is that I imagine myself like a screen door that you would see in a house that just lets air freely flow through it either direction. So when I feel myself tensing up and I know I have some negative energy that's coming at me, instead of holding that tension and holding on to that negativity, I let it just flow through me. And I imagine that screen door, I'm not holding on to it, and it just goes right through me, and I release it and I let it go. And if these are things that are triggering you, things that you've been collecting for a long time, it's probably going to be more unpleasant in those moments to release, to relax and release it and to let it go. It's going to be a little bit more work than if it's something that you're encountering that you don't encounter very often. But it's going to be way less unpleasant than carrying this stuff around for life. And an eye-opening thing with all of this is to pay attention to how often you have to turn yourself into a screen door or whatever it is that you envision yourself as to help yourself in that moment, picturing yourself, letting the energy flow through you and just releasing it. Because for me, I started to notice that there were certain situations and certain people around which I had to turn myself into a screen door pretty much the entire time. And yes, we want to have the ability to release and let go of negative energy regardless of what situation we're in, but it's also important to have, of course, a conscious approach to the way we live our life and to be aware of these situations that put a whole bunch of negativity at us. So if you find yourself constantly in screen door mode, think about those people in those environments and see what you can do to reduce the amount of time that you spend with them and in them. Okay, and the last one, and this one sounds almost insulting and it's probably going to make you want to turn off this video, but stay with me because I promise you it's a big one and it's an important one and it's doable. And it is to choose happiness. And the reason it sounds almost too simple is because you think, well, who wouldn't choose happiness if they could? Why would anyone choose misery? But the reality is that many of us, to some degree, are somewhere on the spectrum of choosing misery. So Michael Singer talks about in his book, harnessing the ability, developing the skills and the awareness to choose happiness regardless of what situation you're in. And he gives examples of all sorts of extreme situations, like being wrongfully imprisoned and going through all sorts of unpleasant things. So this is more than about just choosing happiness when it's easy. It's about choosing happiness all of the time. Because many of us are going through life looking for the problem of the day. We have a bias towards problem. We can tell you, like, our coffee is not hot enough, the music is too loud, the air conditioning's on too high, I don't like the way that person is looking at me, I don't like what that person is saying, it's too cloudy, whatever it is. But we find everything that's wrong. And you can take two people and put them in identical situations, and one will tell you everything that's wrong with it and why they're miserable, and the other one will tell you everything that they love about it and why they're happy. And this is what choosing happiness is. It's about switching that bias towards negativity and problems towards a bias towards happiness and what's going well. It's about stopping to give our power away to other people, to other things, to everything in our environment to determine whether or not we are happy. Many of us go through life thinking that we'll be happy when everything else around us is perfect. Yes, I'll be happy when all of these 97 things are in place. But if any of them aren't, well, no, of course, I'm not going to be happy. So we're waiting for perfection to be happy. And this is instead about whatever is happening right now, taking that power back and choosing happiness in this moment that you are now. And a key thing of what I just said is about in the moment that you are now, because many of us are living hours or weeks or months or years into the future, and we're completely disconnected from this moment where we are now. So it's about finding happiness where you are. A lot of unhappiness comes from thinking about the past or thinking about some hypothetical future or fixating on that gap between now and that hypothetical future. But when you can pull yourself into this moment and start creating that bias towards happiness, you can take back control of it. And all of it, everything from this in this video that I've shared, is the core of brain training, because most of this, if not all of this that I've just described that's happening, that's getting in the way of your happiness, your peace, is automations in your brain. These are things that are happening outside of your conscious awareness. You just on autopilot behave in certain ways. You ignore that chatty voice and let it determine how you feel. You store all that negative energy that's coming at you. You pick out all the things that are wrong in this current moment and all the reasons. You find your problems why you can't be happy right now. And brain retraining is about interrupting those unconscious processes bringing them into consciousness and slowly creating new habits, new automations, new neural pathways in the brain. And in the beginning, for a while, it's going to be work. You're going to have to keep derailing and interrupting those automated processes and creating these new habits of thinking. But in time, those new habits of thinking will become your new automations, and your new automations will be making you happy and ultimately healthier. Thank you for watching, and remember that calming your mind and finding peace are really important steps on your path to recovery from these sorts of conditions. And if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing to my channel for access to over 175 inspiring recovery stories and counting, plus new videos every single week. It is hope and recovery resources here on tap. And make sure to check out the full recovery story playlist linked on the screen and find a recovery story that resonates with you. Let's keep making your head a nice place to be.